Hi there everybody, this is Chris Schmidt with another Grayscale Gorilla tutorial. And today we are going to be talking about some new features in R14, the super new sweet version from Maxon. And I'm going to be focusing mainly on aerodynamics here, so why don't we jump right on in. We have a brand new file, and let's just start talking about it by creating something like a pyramid. I'm going to face it on the Z plus direction, and I'm going to make it way wider, 1000 even. Nice clean numbers. Now, default, if we go and we throw on a simulation tag, rigid body, and you hit play, it just kind of falls down exactly the way we remember and what we're used to. But under the force tab, we have a couple of new settings, and that is drag, lift, and two-sided. And the one we're mainly going to be concerned with is lift. I find it the most useful. And we're going to go and set that to 100%, and now when I hit play, it is not falling straight down anymore. It's actually moving all over the place. Why don't we give ourselves a couple more keyframes? Stretch out the timeline. And now we can see that this is getting some air resistance, and it's actually moving around all over the place. Now, if I go to the side view here, you can see something even more interesting. It's not falling straight down and kind of pointing in that direction. You can see that as it tilts, it's actually falling in whatever direction it's kind of pointing, as if there was airflow on it. So it blows a little to the right, and then it tilts this direction and it starts blowing over to the right. Left and then right. Left, and then it's moving over to the right, and then moving back over to the left. So right there, those are some very interesting new properties. Now, it's automatically calculating the center of mass. But the way it's set up, I guess there's the least air resistance up here. This is the heaviest part, so it's kind of falling down. But if we go into mass, we can actually change the center of mass. So default, so we're on the z-axis, so it's x, y, z. So we have z, so we can actually scoot the axis in one direction or the other. And I think if we go in the positive, if we pull the axis this direction, and I think we can go 500, that would move it 500 over, so that should put it about at the tip. It might be a little beyond if it calculates not from the center. I'm not sure if it does or not. But now if we hit play, okay, I obviously did that backwards. Well, the negative 500, what's it? Yeah, actually, no, it did put the center of mass here, which means I'm backwards on it. Center of mass, left, custom center, that go up. Center of mass being down here. Oh, that makes, okay, sorry, just getting it straight in my head. Center of mass is down here, which means the mass, that's where the center is. So that means all the weight is down there. So now it's falling, and now you see it's actually going point first. But if we set it the other direction, negative 500, hit play, you see the other side is very clearly the heavy side, kind of like where it is default, where it is heavier there, more volume is on that side. But it's even more so now, you see it's pointing a little more directly that way. But the 500 is actually kind of cool. I like doing that, pulling it down like a point. So that right there are kind of the super duper basics of aerodynamics. But why don't we go and do some slightly more interesting things? And the first most interesting thing I think we might be able to do is create a little helicopter. So I'm going to create a cube, and we're going to just make the propeller blades. So I'm going to make a cloner. We'll do this super fast and dirty. We're going to turn it to a radial, and we're going to put it so it's flat on the ground. And then we got the cube, and I can make the cube. How many do we want? So let's just go with 4. Well, even 3. Yeah, 3 blades. I like that even better. I should not have made it editable. I'm going to make the cube editable, not the cloner. And now I can grab the whole thing, and I can scale it down, and I can move it out. And let's see, I want to grab this far polygon, so I'm actually going to grab this one, grow the selection with UI, invert the selection with UI, and now I grab the end. And I can pull that way out. And now I can grab, say, just the side of it and pull that up, and now we've got some blades. Let's see, I'm going to delete the falling tag because I don't want that weird curving shape. And what do we need next? Now we need to put in a connect object so it's treated like a single model, and that's going to mess up the falling tag. So I'm going to set this to manual, which cleans it up again. So there we go, not too bad. I'm going to make another cube for the body, and now obviously our propeller is way too big. So let's scale that way down. And then we can put this right here. Maybe a little bigger. Cool, I like it. All right, so I'm going to put the body down here and the propeller up here. I just kind of like the things being in the order, in the hierarchy that you see them in the viewport. And let's see, what do we got to do now? We have to, first of all, make these dynamic objects. Simulation, rigid body, so they're both rigid body. And we have to go to Simulate, Dynamics, Connect, and get a connector. I'm going to put the connector in between these two because I kind of like visually seeing what's getting connected. And we'll put the propeller, and we'll put the cube. And just to, once again, visually see it, I'm going to pull it up, and I think we actually have to rotate it. So you see there, we have to rotate this so that's facing the proper orientation. Now, the next thing we're going to do is add a motor, but I want to show you something really cool. Right now, if I go and hit play, these two objects are connected. If I hit play, they're just going to fall. But if I go and I throw Aerodynamics up on this propeller, force, lift, and then I'm just going to put 100% lift, hit rewind and play. Now, when I let go, look at that. Air is actually catching on the propeller blades as it falls, and it's making them spin automatically. Something else that's kind of cool is it's because it's catching the wind, it's actually falling slower, and it's keeping the cube from falling as well because they're connected. So if I actually turn off that connection and I drop it, you see the cube's going to fall away pretty quick, but the propeller is catching the wind and slowly falling down. So that by itself, pretty cool. But let's make it cooler. We're going to make it cooler by going to Dynamics, Motor, and we're going to drop a motor in here. And just like the connector, we need to rotate it 90 degrees. So that's applying the power in the proper direction. And what are we going to put in here? We're going to put the motor, and we're going to put the body. Now, we're going to kind of fake it here where we're not going to, well, we're only going to apply the motor's force to the propeller. So instead of apply to both, we're going to apply only to A. Otherwise, the cube would spin as well, and then we'd have to kind of put a counter rotor on it like a real helicopter, but let's not worry about that for now. In any case, let's just go and hit play. So it's spinning and kind of it's just kind of falling. It's not enough power. I'm not even sure it's spinning in the right direction, but I think it is. But let's give it 10 times as much power just to get a ballpark. And I'm going to rewind, hit play. And it is, I do believe, spinning the wrong direction. So that would mean either we'd have to invert these propellers, or we'd have to invert the direction, the target speed. So I actually want the target speed to be negative 100. So now if I go and hit play, there we go. Now it's flying up. A little too fast maybe, so let's drop it to torque of 50. Still pretty strong. Let's see if 20 is enough. Come on, spin. Oh, it catches it, and then it's just enough to keep it up. Let's give ourselves more frames. Rewind, hit play, and now it's down there, but the motor's slowly spinning up. It's getting some torque going, and it starts spinning enough to actually start lifting this cube up. Now, there are a lot of really cool, interesting details. Okay, first of all, it's going a little crazy. But that worked for a little while. Then the center of gravity went off, and actually that's something cool that we can talk about. First of all, you see how the cube is weighing it down, and the propeller spins, but then it slowly starts picking it up. But we can actually go into the cube and make the cube heavier or lighter. We can go to the Mass tab and set from world density to custom density. And we can make this 10 times heavier. And now that's 10 times heavier, it's just going to yank it straight out of the scene. In fact, the gravity pulling it down is stronger than the force of the motor. And even though the motor is trying to make it spin in the proper direction, the force of it getting yanked down is actually making it spin the other way. So the way we fix this is to go to the motor and give it more torque. So there's more power being applied to the motor. It doesn't actually spin faster, it just has more power trying to go there. Now, 50 wasn't enough. Let's try 100. Now there's more power, and you see it's almost enough, but still not quite. So let's do 150. And there we go. 150 is enough to pull up this cube. So that's pretty cool. But let's see if we can fix the next thing. Okay, so that's messing with the weight. But next, let's mess with the center of gravity a bit. So you see this pulling up pretty good. But then eventually totally wigs out and starts like crashing because it gets off center and it just spins. It doesn't know what to do. So I believe this is somewhat untested. I'm making a lot of this up as I go. But if we go to the custom center, we can actually set the center, and I always mix these up. If we put the center of gravity higher, it should pull it down more, I would think. No, I don't know. I always invert these, so let's just guess randomly. So cube is 200, so it's going to do negative 200, and let's see what happens. So this hasn't actually changed the weight of the cube, it just changes where the weight is distributed. And let's see if this works a little better. Well, it's working better. It got higher than it did last time, so I think I made the right guess. Still, that's no good. Let's just take it to an extreme and say negative 2,000 and hit play and let's see what happens. So negative 2,000. I believe that means the center of gravity is way down here, which means it should be a very stable flight. Yeah, as you see, it's just flying really smooth now because the weight is actually so low that, you know, there's nowhere for it to tilt. Now we could, I don't know if this will do anything, but I think in theory, if we were to put the weight really high, then it would, like, as soon as it starts tilting a little bit, it should be very prone to tilting. But I think when I had messed with this before, I actually didn't seem to have too much of an effect. So yeah, I'm not really totally sure on that yet. But something even a little bit more interesting is if we go and we lift this off right away, you see that we're getting a nice flight. Like, it takes off very well. But we could offset the center of the weight by saying let's move it over 200 on the X. And now that means the weight, I believe, is way over on this side. So now we hit play, it's actually tilted over and it freaks it out right away. Like, you know, it's so weighted on the side that it can't fly anywhere. Now we can make it a little more subtle, only move it over a little, which means it's weighted over there and it starts going crazy, but nowhere near as crazy. But even if we offset it a little bit, it'd probably still mess it up eventually. So yeah, there you go. That's some interesting stuff there. Negative 500, and hopefully that would make it pretty stable. So this is pretty cool, and it's actually picking up the the heavier cube. So I like that. But let's see, what are some other things we can do? Really, the options get pretty unlimited. So why don't we move on to something else new? So I'm going to go and open up another new file, and let's try and play with some paper this time. So I'm going to decrease my segments to 10, 10, and let's play with some aerodynamics on a plane. I'm going to make it editable just because I know that these numbers work pretty well. Now, aerodynamics does seem to slow down quite a bit, slow everything down quite a bit. So using low poly stuff seems to work, pretty well. Oops, I totally threw on the wrong tag. Simulation tags, soft body, not cloth body. All right, cool. Now, it's cloth, but if I go and hit play, it's just falling like always. So why don't we do, first of all, something a little bit more interesting. Let's add lift. Now, if I add lift and hit play, it actually isn't any different, and that's because we have to turn on two-sided. Default, it assumes it's kind of a volume, like a sphere or a cube, where the normal direction, they're all facing outward. But this plane, the normal direction is facing upward, and negative normals are down, so it's actually not seeing the other side. So if we turn on two-sided and hit play, now you see what it's doing. Now, something else that's pretty interesting, we don't even need cloth body on for this. I'm going to turn off cloth. You see how it's, the lift is actually pulling it down very slowly. But if we take this and we tilt it a little bit, just 10 degrees there, and I hit play, it's actually going to start moving in that direction. So the angle of the normals affects which direction the stuff falls, and that is the basics of what is going to make this cloth stuff really cool. So now if we go and we turn on made of polygons and lines, and we hit play, well, it's not going to look too different right away, but we can make it way more interesting if we take a sphere, and let's go to top view, and I'm going to put it over here in the corner, and we're going to move it up a bit. I said up a bit, and we're going to throw on a simulation, rigid body, and now watch what happens. Now, when I hit play, it's going to clip the edge, and it's going to start blowing around. And I'm going to zoom way out so we can see this, because this tends to do some really interesting things. So it's going to clip the edge there, and you see it blowing around. Oop, I guess we need way more keyframes. See, it's blowing around, and look, it actually went up there a little bit. And it's twisting around, and all these forces are being applied to it, and it's falling down, and it's spinning around, and kind of the shape of this is dictating where it's floating. And because of the shape of it, you actually saw that one quick moment there where it actually blew upward. The shape of it and the acceleration spins it up, and then gravity starts taking over again, and it starts falling again. That is really cool. So why don't we take this to the next level and throw this into a cloner. And we're going to, let's make a couple clones, and heck, we'll just pull this pile down, and we'll let that sphere kind of ram through all of them. Doop, 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 doop. So you see each one is doing its own thing, and wind is twisting them all around uniquely, and these could collide with each other, but look at that one flying around. Like, they're each doing their own unique thing, and these all have the exact same settings. So this is fantastic. Like, how would you have ever animated that before? I can't even conceive of a way. It's so cool how these fly around. Now there's a lot of different settings inside of soft body, as you know, and they can all have a lot of effect depending on the situation of what you're doing. But I have found that flexion is the most relevant to this kind of cloth. So if I drop this way down, it's way more prone. So I dropped it from 50 to 5. It's way more prone to bending a lot. So now as this kind of crashes through, these can kind of crumple and fold and twirl a lot more than they were before. Look at that one. See, that gets really twisty. They're flying around in such cool ways. But as an alternative, if we set that not to 50 but back up to 500, so now it should be pretty stiff along that parameter. Let's see what happens. I think in general these are going to try and stay much straighter, and we're not going to see them flying around quite as much. I'm not going to, you see how it's bending there, but still staying very straight. Look at that one go. That one's almost gone higher than its original position. So yeah, that makes them stay much straighter. So that's this parameter, and I found it to be the most important of all the different ones. I haven't played around with this much, but we could try and crank the stiffness up. I put the flexion back to 50, which was its default, and now these might be very stiff and might not bend very much at all. Let's see if it's, yeah, you see there's a little bit of bend on the tips, but they're staying overall straight. So, you know, every setting can have different effects on it, but let's put that back to 0. But in general, flexions is my go-to for it. So why don't we take this to the next level? And I'm going to take my plane, I'm going to copy it, I'm going to go to a new file so we can do some quick tests on it. Now, I think this has already been mentioned in another video, but a new shortcut, which I think is fantastic, is it brings up a command line, and if you hit Shift-C, it pops open this command line thing, and we can type in anything we want, any command anywhere in Cinema. It could pop up a cube or a sphere or whatever. But one of my favorite buttons, if it's on the interface, you can get to it this way, and that's Reset PSR. See how this isn't at 0? So I can just type in PSR and hit Enter, and it's going to automatically snap it to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So I could, you know, just really quickly move it there, rotate in a quick position. I could go Shift-C rather, and then PS. And I don't even have to hit R. PS is actually enough to bring that up. And I can Enter, and boom, reset. Fantastic. I love it. Okay, I'm going to make a cube, and I'm going to elongate the cube, and I'm going to grab the cube, and I'm going to move it down, and I'm going to go to the top view and move it to the right. And then I'm going to apply a collider body tag. Now copy, paste it, and then I'm going to invert its X. So now we have 2. And essentially all I've done is I've made 2 cubes so it actually catches this plane as it drops. So I hit play, boom, it catches the plane. So this is a good way of testing how cloth is affecting this plane. So I'm going to copy and paste the plane so we always have kind of the original one and then the new one that we can do new experiments with. I'm also going to turn on a different type of shading so that we can you know, so that, or turn on the shading so that we can see the lines. Let's see. I'm going to grab the cubes and pull them both down a little as well, so maybe they'll fall and then catch it. So now we can start playing with cloth settings. So here we could change, like, say, structural. We'll drop structural down and see if it changes. And that doesn't look too different. We could change structural to something really small, like 1, and see if that has any effect. And I'm, you know, a little bit. You see how it is still kind of bending a little bit, but it's so subtle. Like, that one's not too useful. Then you have shear, and as I recall, shear is actually pretty strange what it does. Actually, it doesn't seem that in this situation doesn't seem to be having much effect either. Of course, we could add stiffness back in, and that, now you see this one's being kept very straight. But of course, like I said, flexion seems to be the big one. If I turn the flexion down real low, you see that immediately falls through. We can even set it lower. And yeah, you see it completely kind of just collapsing and not having any structure. And if we set that to 500, you see it makes it very straight. That seems to be the most relevant parameter. So what I want to do now is make this more like a newspaper. And this actually took me a while to figure out, but it taught me quite a few new things about springs, or internal springs that are calculated. You see there's a spring tab. So all these are based on what they call springs, which are connecting all these points in different ways and determining how they can move based on their neighbors. So what I want to do is make the center line very weak. so that this bends very easily. Now, what I had originally thought is I could just grab this one line of points like that and put a vertex map on it and it would bend. But actually what I learned is you can't do it that way. You actually have to do it by selecting the line you want and all of its direct neighbors. So I'm actually going to grow my selection, U, Y. Now I have all these, and that's what we actually need. And then actually, interestingly, is we don't want these points directly. We actually want all the other ones. So I'm going to invert the selection with UI, and now we've got all the other points. Now we can go to selection, set vertex weight. I'm going to set this weight to 100. So I'm going to hit OK. Now we've got a new vertex weight, vertex map weight tag over here on the plane, and what can actually happen now, well, I'll just show you. Right now, it's no different. If I rewind, hit play, nothing changes. But if I go to the tag, I can now drag this tag directly into all these different parameters. So I can drag it into flexion, and now when I rewind, hit play, look where it bent. We can even give ourselves a couple more frames here. Drop. And all the rest of it still has 100% flexion, but that has 0, and you see it folds right there. And now it's actually flying around, folded, and look, it just flapped open. That is so cool. I love that. Now we could go back through and give that center point a little more weight. I really don't think it's necessary, but I'll just show you how. We have all these other points, but what I could do is invert them again, and then because I still have the map selected, any changes I make, it'll be applied globally. Like I said, I'm going to undo this, but I can grab these points and say these are set to 50%, and you'll see them turn orange. See how that turned orange there? So these are still 100 and these are 50. So these are actually quite strong. If I were to rewind, hit play, it might want to bend there a little more than usual, but it's still most of the power. So that's no good. So I'm actually going to hit undo because I want that to be 0. And now you see this folds over very nicely. I like that a lot. So that's our new paper. So I'm going to copy this and let's go back to our other scene file. And let's just paste it and replace all these other ones. I don't want that one anymore. I want the folding one. So I'm going to rewind, hit play, and now this can go through, and now we might be able to see our papers fold over when it catches, some bit of airflow in the right way. See how like right here you're getting that line pretty well. Now it hasn't actually folded over. I think that one might have. Nope, not quite yet. Let's just let it play a little bit. Now, they don't seem to be randomly folding too much, so why don't we try and force it? This is, once again, just experimenting in the moment. I'm going to crank the flexion way up high, but the other one is still 0. It's multiplied by 0, which means it's still very stiff. So that means that these are quite stiff except for that one joint, which makes it more likely that if it is going to bend, it has to bend in that one spot. See, these are bending pretty well here. Yeah, look at that. That is really cool. And now that might completely close, and then what's great is that if it catches the wind right, that flattened out completely, and then it caught the wind right, and then it opened up again. I think that one's folded over. Maybe. It's hard to follow when they start flying around like this, but oh, that's so cool. Look at that one. Folded over. It's still folded. Let's see. Moving is 1 since it's folded. And let's see if it just catches the wind just right. I mean, once again, this is random, so we don't know. But if it catches the wind right, then look, it opened up again. And that is great. How would you do that? I don't know. I don't even want to think about how difficult it would be to do that kind of thing. So yeah, this really opens up the possibility of stuff to do with paper. In fact, we can do something cool here where instead of just doing it in a cloner, I'm going to open up a new file. I copied this plane, new file, Command N, Command V for paste. I'm going to reset the PSR, Shift C, PS, Enter. There we go. It's in the center. And let's go to Simulate, Particle, Emitter. Drop this right in there, and let's change some settings real quick. I'm going to say 2, 2. I just want to keep on emitting, which is fine. Speed, quite a bit of speed. I'm going to set the emitter to 0, 0, really tiny, so it's all coming from the same point. And show objects is, of course, very important. And let's give ourselves more frames. And let's see what we get. Play. Pew, 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 pew. Now you see, as they come out, they look exactly the same, but then they're catching the wind, and they actually all start deforming what looks like a practically identical way. Now, I think there's just some built-in randomness, they eventually they all start doing their own thing, and also they're colliding. As soon as they collide, then each one's doing its own thing. If we, I don't know, maybe if we crank up the speed or something, wow, that's crazy. Like the lift is catching in the air really quick, and it's immediately terminating that speed. I'm not sure what that is simulating, but it's pretty cool. But that looks so cool. And like we just have this floating paper. This could be anything. These could be dollar bills. It's paper. It could be cards. Anything kind of fly. They're different fabrics. And then, I mean, so many things are so easy to change. And of course, it's going to start slowing down as it goes. But we could go into the mass of the object, say. And as soon as there's more mass, let's say 10, then it should, well, first of all, way more, so it might fall down. But it's also going to, I think it'll fly forward more, where the lift can't stop it as well. Yeah, look at that. So this is actually by making this heavier. And that's heavier. Look at that fold. They're all folding really well. Gravity, I think, has more of a factor. So you see how they're all tipping over because of the way they're bending. And then they start folding in. Like, that's amazing. I love that. I don't know what to do with this render, or I don't have a concept for it, but this is just, once again, trying to show off the aerodynamics themselves. So, let's see, what's next? Oh, I got one. Really quickly, why don't we model a Nerf football? And we want this emitter, so I'm going to copy this emitter, go to a new file, paste it, but we don't need the plane anymore. So let's model a Nerf football. Do it super quick. I'm going to go to display mode, and let's see. Fastest way, taper. I'm going to drop in a taper, and let's taper the sucker. Nice. And I'm going to copy that and flip it upside down. 180 degrees. There we go. Nice. I like that shape. Make this editable, right click, current state the object, delete the original. Now we have that as a model. Now that we have that as a model, I can maybe go down to the bottom here and grab this bottom ring. I'm actually going to zero out this bottom ring because, as an example, because there's a little point to it like that, it's not actually flat. It's the letter S to zoom in. If I hit extrude, it's going to extrude out all goofy like that. But if I zero this out and I hit D for extrude, then I can pull straight down. So let's pull out a little bit of a tail here and hit the letter D and extrude again, very intentionally doing it twice. And now, why don't we go in here? And this is always difficult, but I'm going to try and grab these edges. Keeps on pulling my axis around, which screws me up. This doesn't have to be perfect, but why not try? I'm looking at the axis to kind of know which ones I need. Those two, and then the opposite of that is these two. And I'm going to deselect all these. There we go. Now I've got those edges. Now I'm going to, just to do it quick, I'm going to just hit extrude, pull these way out, pull them down. Excellent. That looks very nerfy, I think. Excellent. All right, and then let's see. I'm going to rotate it flat, so it's a better way of experimenting with it. And just because I always like the axis pointing in the correct direction, I'm going to rotate the axis around with the axis tool. And I'm going to rotate the axis around and hold down Shift until it's set to 90 degrees. So now Z is pointing forward. Cinema, and a lot of things in Cinema, it likes Z to be forward. So I try to work in that whenever I can. Also, it's, I'm going to reset the PSR. Shift C, PS. There we go. Now it's pointing on Z, and it is Z. So, dynamics tag. Boom. Let's do some quick experiments here. And I always go to the wrong menu. Rigid body. Okay, rigid body just dropped. No regular thing. Falls straight down. No good. We want lift. Boom. It's got lift. Let's see what it does now. Well, apparently these are pretty evenly weighted. First of all, we need more keyframes. Pretty evenly weighted as far as the way it's catching wind and the center of gravity. So there, it's slowly pointing out. But that means the most important thing we can do here is change the center of gravity. So we're going to go to Mass, Custom Center, and X, Y, Z. And I always forget which direction this is. And first of all, let's see how big this model is. The model is about 600. So let's say this gets moved 300. And I don't know if I did that right or backwards. Oh, there we go. Look, Now it's pulling it down. Now, we might have to change that later, but let's do that default. I'm going to throw it into the emitter, and we're going to set it tangential, I think. And let's see what happens. Pew, pew, pew. Oh, very nice. I like that. Now, while that's cool, it's nowhere near fast enough. So, let's crank up the speed. Additionally cool. I like it. Now, let's rotate it upward. So we can actually start flinging these things. Now, what's happening here is they have, you know, the lift is slowing this down quite a bit. And then gravity is taking over and it's falling down because gravity is a constant force. So they're losing their velocity very quickly. The biggest way of changing this, I like how they're kind of getting backed up here. But in any case, the biggest way to change this is to change its mass. Mass is so important in aerodynamics. And we're going to go to a custom density, and I'm going to rewind, hit play, and we can see what's happening. But if I make this custom density from 1 to 10, then now they have a lot more mass. And look at what's happening. There's no, like, this drag is having not anywhere near as much of an effect on it, and we're getting this really nice arc. Look at that beautiful arc we're getting. I like it. So let's see, those should, I'm going to go to the emitter. These should live for about 400 until we get bored with them. Why don't we emit more of them? And why don't we make the emitter have some spread? And let's see what happens. There we go. Let's even make a floor. And I can just steal its dynamics tag. Boom. Boom, boom. That's great. This is like a scene from like those Japanese movies where you throw a whole bunch of arrows. Gravity taking over. Everything's working great. And this is all with aerodynamics. So, there we go with that. Now, let's do a completely experimental thing. I'm making this up completely as I go. I just had the idea right before I started recording. And that is we're going to go steal our little awesome propeller thing over here, our little helicopter. And I'm going to make a null object and drop everything inside. So we are just going to call this motor. I'm going to copy it, and we're going to go to a new file, and we're going to paste it. Now what we're going to do is make a slightly more complex flying contraption. So there's our sphere, and let's see, what am I going to do? I am going to pull this motor up. And we are going to connect it here. So I'm actually going to make a null object, and I'm going to copy this motor. So hopefully you followed. So now I've got two different motors, and I'm going to rotate. Well, actually, I'm going to go back a step. I'm going to delete one of them so we still have the null. What I want to do is connect this cube to the sphere. And the sphere should have the same parameters as the cube, so I'm going to copy that right over. That's fine. Now we're going to make a new connector. I'll just make it from scratch. So we'll simulate dynamics connector. So it's a new connector, and we're going to connect the sphere to the other things. Actually, I'm going to put it inside here. And what do we want this to be? This is a fixed kind, so I want to fix the cube to the sphere. But now as I copy this, it'll automatically copy that connection as well. So I've got this null, and I'm going to copy and paste that, so I got two motors. So I can tilt one 30 degrees. I can tilt the other 30 degrees, but the other direction. Very nice. Now let's see, our propellers are both going to spin, and I have no idea, once again, that I'm making this up right now as we go. So I have no idea if this is going to work. But I've got this one connector, but I want to offset it, let's say 50 degrees, so that maybe they're not colliding. So I have no idea what's going to happen. Let's rewind and hit play. Oh, goodness. Is that right? Should we... Spin, 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 spin. Let me think for a second here. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. All right, so I guess to make this work, we have to make the propeller smaller, so they're not quite colliding, because I want to make this even more complex. So I'm going to hold down, I'm on scale, I'm holding down shift, and I'm going to scale down. 80% might be enough. So that's on that one. So let's go over to this other one, and scale down to 80%. Hit play, there we go. Now they're not hitting each other anymore. So that's the beginning. Now, this sphere... Well, first of all, I think it had a custom density of 10, so let's go back to world density, so it doesn't weigh a ton. That's better, but we still need more power. So let's go to these two motors. Maybe see some hierarchy a little more. Two motors, and they need more power. So let's give it more torque. Okay, that's pretty good. They have more torque, but I think now we might actually need a higher target speed. So that this is the goal that they're trying to spin towards, kind of the peak speed. So those are spinning faster. It's still pulling it down. Let's give it 5. Oh, there we go. Look at that. 550 torque, and it's finally enough to start pulling this up a little bit. Love it. That is great. Now, those two, if 2 motors are good, 4 motors should be better. Once again, making this up as we go. Copy and paste these 2 motors, and I'm going to rotate them 90 degrees. And I don't know if they're going to be colliding. I don't even know if that makes sense. What is it doing? I think they're colliding. Oh, they're actually touching each other, so that would probably be bad in general. I still no idea if this is any good. It is a good idea. If I'm going to hold down Shift and rotate that another 10 degrees, rotate this one 10 degrees away, rotate this one 10 degrees that way, rotate this one 10 degrees this way. There. Hopefully not touching anymore. Ah, no, they still totally are. So close, so close. Let's see. What's the best way to do this? I guess we'll just shrink the propeller down a little bit. Again, grab that one, grab this one. Hopefully 10 degrees is enough. So I'm going to click anywhere, drag, hold down Shift, 90. Grab this one, hold down Shift, start dragging, and then hit 90. Grab this one, start dragging, hold down Shift, 90. Let's see. Okay, good. They're all spinning now. They're not spinning quite fast enough at this angle. Like, each angle isn't helping that much because they're tilted so far to the side, but I kind of like that. Motor, 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 top speed, more torque. Will more torque do it? Or is it a faster top speed? Come on, so close. I think it's torque at this point. Wow, okay, that's got a ton of torque now, but it is successfully pulling up this sphere. That is pretty cool. Another thing is right now our cubes are weighted a little heavy. There's no reason for them to be density 10 in this setup. So I'm going to grab all the cubes dynamics tags and we'll just put these back up to world density. That should make this significantly lighter. I'm going to click back on this motor. Actually, we need all 4 motors. Anything we do from this point forward, we need all 4 motors. And now it's a little too powerful because the cubes are lighter. So let's see what we got. Oh, that's still good. Spinning really fast. Oh wow, this has made it a lot lighter. There we go. So this is starting to be pretty good, and I like that a lot. That looks adorable. So now we've got our adorable little flying sphere being picked up by these motors. Now I have no idea how well this is going to work, but why don't we play around with this other setting, another new dynamic setting, and that has to do with these connectors, fixed connectors, and that is a single new checkbox, well I guess 2, which is braking force. So what this braking force is a force that when it's achieved will actually break this connection. Now right now it's set to 0, so it's probably going to break right away. So those automatically just fly away from it. So that's not good. So this actually requires really big numbers. You could say 10, and I do it, and then they still immediately break off. No good. So we'll do 100, and it's very important when you're doing tests, especially with dynamics. Like, you don't know what number is a good number, so always do things by factors of 10. And then if you go up a factor of 10 and it's too much, then you know it's somewhere between those 2 numbers. So now we're at 100, too much, or still not enough. 1,000, play, still not enough. 10,000, hit play. There we go. Finally, it didn't break. So now we know it's between 1,000 and 10,000. So why don't we just try and split the difference? Rewind, hit play. Still not enough, so it's between 5,000 and 10,000. So maybe 10,000 is a good number to start out with. I don't know. Let's find out. So what this means is that's a connection break. So if it takes a hit, then it might break that apart. So what I'm going to do is actually take the sphere, copy and paste it. So now I just have a lonely sphere with some dynamics on it. It doesn't have like awesome motors. So what we're going to do is drop this on it and see what happens. Knock the motors off and then they fly away. So I actually wasn't even thinking about it for that part, but that's really cool. So obviously that is a nice braking force. So now we got our awesome little flying sphere guy. And why don't we make a null and grab everything, deselect the null and drop it in here. We'll call it helisphere. And why don't we take this in the cloner, and we'll put this in there, and now we got a cloner, which is super cool. We'll do a grid. We'll do a grid of 2 by 2 by 2. We'll just add a 1 in front of these so they get far enough apart. Not very far apart. Let's see what happens. Heck, we'll just hit go, and actually they're all doing identical things, so they might be fine. They're all just going to fly around, do their own thing. Oh, we need so many more keyframes. I'm going to go with 9,999, because why not? So these are all just doing their thing, fine. We can real chill, real cool. Now what's something important we need? We need a random effector. Now, what the random effector is going to do is just make it pretty. We're going to turn off position, but we're going to turn on color. There we go. We needed to see some different colors here. Now we can tell them apart. All right, so they're flying around, they're doing their thing, they're happy, they're cool. But what happens if we interject evil Mr. Cube? You know, we can't have cubes on Grayscale Gorilla. This is what happens when you have cubes in Grayscale Gorilla. Everything gets all messed up. So we're going to go to top view and see if we can't muck up the works a little here. We'll drop it right there. Make it a little higher so it has some flight time. And let's go and put a new simulation rigid body tag. I don't know if that's going to be enough to collide with it, but why don't we just see? Uh-oh. And then they go and they collide with these other ones, and then knocks those motors off, and then those fly off, and now they're all going crazy, and the spheres are getting dropped away, and the cubes are going nuts. So it's going to just drop all these spheres out of nowhere. So these are fragile little things. Now, this new type of connection, what do you call it? What do they call it? They call it braking force. Braking force is pretty cool. I like it. I'm actually going to shrink this cube. Actually, let's make it really tiny and see if it still breaks. It totally did. Doesn't take much. Does not take much. Oh, green. Oh, I thought green was going to make it, but they didn't. This connector. Is there a good way to do this? I want to grab all these connectors, but there's kind of a lot of them now. There's 4 for every one of these. Well, there's only 1, but I'm going to just search for connect. So now we get all these connectors. Now I can actually grab these. And now that we have these, we can actually change the name. We'll call it like connector force. And now we can just search for the word connector force. But in case we don't need to search anymore, now we've got the connector forces there. And why don't we make the connection stronger? So I had 100, or is it 12,000? So let's see if it still breaks it. Boink. Oh, it totally does. Still not enough. Let's once again, we can't be subtle here. Rewind, hit play. Here comes the cube. Boom. It broke off 2 of them. Okay, that was a little cooler. I'm going to make it 20. Hopefully that's enough now. So this is dropping down, and that's going to hit. And boom, there's enough. But see how these still have 2 motors, so it's kind of pulling it away. And then those broke off. But these can take a little bit of a hit now, but they still all crash into each other. Oh, this one's still trying. Oh, it got smacked. So it's only got 1 propeller, but that's nowhere near enough. That is super cool. I'm going to make it 3 this time, so it's a little stronger. Let's see what happens. Oh, okay, there. That hit. These are flying away. But now the connection's a little stronger, so hopefully some of these can take a couple hits and survive. Let's see if anybody makes it. Oh, only 2. Oh, they're veering off course. Oh, no. Can he fly with 3? Look, he's trying to recover. That is amazing. It's hard to fly with 3 motors. Oh, he survived! We have a winner. I'm automatically declaring him winner. He wins. Oh, pinks were doing pretty well too, but blue got higher. Oh man, I could play with this stuff all day. Now, if you did a little bit of expressor, you could actually do it if this connector broke. Oh, they have a new node. If you could do an expression, if this connector broke, the motor would turn off and stop spinning, so we wouldn't get all this goofy kind of flying around of these other parts. But on the other hand, I kind of like that. So, depending on what you're doing. Now, this will probably start slowing down if we throw too much stuff at it, but I can't help but complicate it a little bit. There we go. Now we got a whole family of them. Yeah, that's going to start running pretty slow, but let's see what happens when we throw in. Actually, that might not even hit any of them. Oh, nope. See, I was right. I don't think that will actually hit. So, there's so much stuff here. I'm going to turn off the scene for a split second. And, yeah, let's just move that cube. Why is it not moving? What am I doing wrong? Oh, time is 0. Can't move unless we're at the time is 0. Time is 0. There. Now you can hit some propellers. Now we can turn this on. And even though it's choking, it's going really slow. It's too awesome to not do. So let's see what happens. Pink. It's getting smacked around those propeller blades. It's hard to tell. I'm going to pause it. Smacked around. Oh, red survived it. Let's see if anybody else gets hit. Smacked, but survived. Oh, everybody survived. It fell right through. Well, we can't have that, can we? Guess what? Cube's a little bigger now. Let's see who survived that red. Here it comes. Uh-ohs. Uh-oh. Everything's gone sideways. This is madness. Okay, I love it. This is why I love Cinema 4D. This is why I love 3D in general. We just get to play with this kind of stuff, and it's amazing and so much fun. So these are just flying around, and all spheres are dropping out and destroying everybody. And we got a couple guys here with a few motors who are trying to survive, but they're getting buzzed by everybody else. Oh man, this is great. See, what's cool too is well, we got the search. So I can actually search for motor, and there are our 4 motors. And now that we've got these, we could give it, say, more torque. So maybe they're gonna be flying up pretty quick, but as they get damaged, if they lose one motor, they probably still have enough power to keep flying. And by updating just these 4, it updates on all of them. Pink. Okay, so let's see, we knocked the motor off of that. Pink lost one. And now we get the same chaos, but I think that anybody who survives a hit or two with 3 motors will still survive pretty well. Actually, this guy with 2 seemed to be doing all right. Here's Pink, 2 propellers, kind of flipping out of control, but these guys are well, it's interesting if nothing else. See if anybody can properly recover. This blue one seems to be doing all right. Oh no, this yellow one came in and smacked the motor off. That was great how they try and recover too, because the weight of the sphere is down low. So they are trying to recover. Okay, well, this was really fun. I don't think I'm going to be able to top this right now, so why don't we wrap it up here? Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. This was super fun. Man, I can't wait to keep on making more flying machines. So I will catch you guys later with another Grayscale Gorilla tutorial.